Welcome back, guys. Thanks for supporting our channel. We're bringing you a new segment today called Tackle Tips and Tricks, and we're going to give you an unbiased look at some of our favourite lures, some new stuff. We're going to be introducing you today to one of Cairns' local tackle gurus, and this guy looks at lures a lot differently to you and I, and I'm interested to see what he's got to say, so we'll get started. Our special guest today is Bumpabar Tim. Welcome, Tim.
Peter.
Today we're going to be having a look at the Biwaa Kapsiz swimmer. We've just recently come back from Cape York, and this lure was particularly successful. And Tim's going to look at this lure from a lot of different aspects, and we're going to run you through it. So over to you, mate.
Thank you. Peter was fishing with these, and basically all the time I was up there I tried probably 30 different plastics in different ways and forms, and honestly I got outfished nearly over 2-to-1 ratio. Never been impressed with a lot of plastics in the sense that most of them are all the same, but these ones impressed me the most simply because of a couple of things they've done to them which is unusual for plastics, and I'm very impressed with. Okay, so what I'm looking at here is this is 4 of the new paddle tail plastics that are on the market. Been on the market, 3 of them have been on the market for quite a long time, and they're all running the same format in their paddle tail. Basically they're just a moulded paddle tail, no structural strength, just the long thickness of the body to give it the maximum flexibility through the slowest of the retrieving. And even though the materials in different plastics, this is a Z-Man which is super stretchy, super tough, but again, as you can see, the paddle tail is exactly the same. Nemesis, it's a lot thinner at the back end to give it more movement, but it's still a flat paddle tail. All very good lures. So what I was very impressed with the paddle tail is because it's very short and solid, it actually creates a very tight wobble action. And because the plastic itself is very thin for its length, it actually creates a lot of shimmering when it goes down. So instead of it just a wobble, it actually shimmers, and it's very much like a herring. And because a herring also has a very tight action, then you need the tail itself to be able to do the same thing. If this lure had that tail, it would then create a wide wobble action and a tight shimmer, which is not a realistic image of what a fish would be seeing. And even though on the trip that we're using with this, we're only using, well, Peter was only using a 1/4 ounce weight, as it was sinking, it's very tight and shimmers, and it actually is very much like a herring swimming down. And that's one of the big reasons why I believe this plastic works so well. Another feature with the lure is the fact that even though it's very thin, it's very durable material they've made out of. I don't know what it is, I'm not into technical terms or anything like that, but it's not a full stretch lure, but it is very durable. In fact, Peter caught, I think, 13 fish on one body, and for me that's as good as what a Z-Man's going to be or anything like that. So I was very impressed with that. Also, the other thing I noticed was the body cavity regarding of the underbelly for where the hook placement will go and stuff like that is very deep. So half the body, as you can see, half the body which is there is already taken up, so the hook is allowed to penetrate right through. Now the best part about it is the fact that it goes right up to the front, and because of that what happens then is when and I'll show one rig, but basically what it is when you're using a weedless hook, the hook has the ability to go straight up through the body and come out onto a better hookup rate than what I find a lot of other plastics where the hook is stopped there, even though the body is empty in here, but it has to squeeze harder here to get that hook to come up, where this just seemed to push straight up through. And yet it still didn't catch snags and stuff like that, because it has another feature which is on the very top of it. It has little ribs all the way along the top where the hook will sit in the lure, and they are designed for the actual barb of the hook. As you push through, if you pull back on it, it'll jam into the barb and keep the hook in there, because the hook is only going through half of the body, so something else has to hold it in there tight. And I noticed in all the time we were fishing, I think Peter only hooked a snake 3 times for 2 days fishing, which impressed me a lot. For an example, I've just rigged up 3 of the lures with the new flasher rigs that we were using. Now, as you can see with the Biwaa, as the lure then pushes up, or as the fish will bite onto it, the body weight or the weighted part of the lure has the ability to push straight in through the body, and with very little ease it will actually expose the hook. On the other hand, a hollow belly using the same rig is because in that area there's most of the plastic is built in the head. Even though the lure back here is hollow right through to there, the thing is, as you push in, I've actually got to force that down. As I force it down, the hook still doesn't expose not as much as I'd like, which means that you get a small fish or whatever grab onto the head, you're going to have less chance of hooking up. The Z-Man is a lot softer material, but it rolls rather than squash down. It cannot push up through the head at all, because of the fact that, as I say, the body cavity slit doesn't go right up to the head, and if it did, then it would pull out too easy. And that's why I'm very impressed with that, because that's a major feature. The hookup rate on this compared with what I was using Peter's was easily, as I say, nearly 3-to-1 ratio of hookup rates to strikes. So that to me is a winner. What I was trying to explain about before about the cavity on the top, so it has the little type of ridges in there, and that is actually designed for you to be able to pull the lure forward and jam the barb of the hook in there, and that helps to maintain, when you cast and stuff like that, to maintain the hook stays into the body. Where, as you can see with all the rest, with all the Z-Mans and hollow bellies, if you're trying to do that, you physically have to pull the plastic back, jam the tip of the hook in, and now it starts to look unnatural. Where that there looks perfect. Now that keeps it at a lot lower profile, and the benefit of that is to basically, when you're casting and putting in snags and stuff like that, the lure can hit the snags and everything like that, but there's very little opportunity to ever hook up on that, because I mean, I haven't got steel fingers, and yet I've no worries about rubbing that across that and it doesn't pull through. That to me is a major feature of this lure, because keeping the lure being fully snagless, throw it in heavy timbers and stuff like that, and being able to retrieve that lure out of that timber without hooking that snag, that's time on your hands, because that's what catches fish. And the fact that as it's swimming down, its ability to swim down through the snags using that is a winner, because a lot of times the fish will be right on that snag, and that's make it. And believe me, he was definitely thrown in the timbers. Was I impressed with this lure? Yes, I was. And I was impressed because of all the features I tried to explain to you about it. Would I use it myself? My word, I would. In fact, I was quite impressed because they're not that dear either. I found quite a few companies had them for literally $13.95 for a pack of 3. And the fact that they work, definitely I think they're a winner.
So Tim, these Biwaas have a very skinny profile. They're really thin. You mentioned earlier that they may imitate a herring.
Yeah. So personally, I believe, like, this is my own personal thought, is because it has that herring profile and very tight shimmering action, is one of the reasons why I believe I got outfished up there, is because all my lures that I was using basically had a mullet profile, a fatter body, slow roll action and stuff like that. And the reason why I believe this worked is because it was a herring profile. Up where we were is the herring profile, or the herrings itself, was very scarce. Yet there was thousands or probably millions of mullet. So why are they going to take a mullet imitation when there are thousands of them there, and yet there was virtually no herring? So to me personally, I believe it's the fact that it's like a cherry on a cake. The first thing you want to grab is that cherry, and to me that would be the herring. And even though barras love mullet, if there's herring there, I'll guarantee they will gorge themselves on. And during a lot of times of the year, the herrings start their way from basically Gove area and stuff like that, and they come right down through the Gulf and right across, and then they come down the coast, and then by the time they get to basically even Cairns, they're almost fully grown herring. But they're not there all year round, whereas the mullet are. So that's one of the reasons why, because I reckon it looked like a herring. They wanted it because they're very rare at the time of the year.
So Tim, thanks for your time today.
No worries, Peter.
Appreciate you having a look at these lures for us.
Yep.
Tim seems to look at lures a lot differently to you and me. I see a shape and a colour. Tim sees all the technical sides of things and how they're going to swim and what they're going to do.
Oh.
And appreciate your time today.
No worries.
And don't forget, guys, if you like our show and you'd like to subscribe, please do. And we're going to have more of these little tackle tips and tricks for you in the weeks to come.